May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Please be seated. So I want you to join me in a little imagination exercise. I want you to maybe close your eyes, picture yourself as one of Jesus's disciples. It's been a rough couple of months. You've seen Jesus, who you followed, who you thought would be the one to bring real change and real difference into the world, the one that would restore Israel to its former glory. And yet you watched him being plotted against by the religious authorities, and then you watched him be crucified by the Roman Empire. And then there was this resurrection thing, which maybe you still don't know what you do with that. There have been people have seen him, you've seen him, and then you watched 10 days ago, you watched him ascend to God. So now you are sitting in a house. You are gathered with your friends. It's early in the morning. Maybe you've already had breakfast. Maybe some of the stragglers are still having their coffee. You've been in this house for some time. Nobody's really sure what the way forward is. But you're comfortable here. You're protected. This seems like the best place to be. And then suddenly, there's a wind. And now if you're from Fairfield, you're no stranger to wind. But there's a wind that's so violent that it comes in the house. It's like an earthquake wind. It shakes everything. And then you and your fellow disciples decide collectively and without discussion that the thing to do is to go outside the house. This violent wind got you out of your comfort zone, outside, to where there are observant Jews from all over the place who have come to celebrate the festival of Shavuot, or the Festival of Weeks, which is a harvest festival where they're also commemorating God giving Moses the Torah. So there are people just from all over the place, and they speak different languages. And suddenly you're able to talk and communicate with people you had not been able to talk to before. Something new has happened. And you are filled with the Spirit so much that people think you're drunk, but you can't be, because it's only 9 o'clock in the morning, and apparently nobody gets drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning in this scenario. Who knew? So God did something new. This was a new thing. We talk about Pentecost as the birth of the church. This is where we start to figure out, what do we do with this resurrected Jesus? What do we do? So what is this whole imagination exercise I just put you through? What is this? What does it mean? What does it mean to have God's Spirit descend on us? What does it mean to hear this story about this violent wind that got people out of their comfort zone, got them out into the world, out talking about Jesus? What it seems to me is it is the completion of the death and rebirth cycle here. All through the natural world, all through our lives, we have cycles of death and resurrection, death and rebirth. It's everywhere. It happens every spring. We go through winter where it seemed like things are dying. And then we have spring where we have all the leaves bud out and we start to have our flowers, and we move through another cycle. It happens every morning when we wake up. We have the rebirth of ourselves, a new day, a chance to start over. So Pentecost, that's the completion of the cycle. You've got death, the death of Jesus, the rebirth, the resurrection of Jesus, and then something new. Because God is always making something new in the world. God is always making something new in our lives. Yet we don't always have this violent wind to push us out, to get our attention. So we have to find other ways of listening for where God's Spirit is calling us out of our comfort zone. We have a lot of articles written. There's so much ink being spilled these days about the death of the church, the decline of the church, what's happening to the church. We are in a death and rebirth cycle. And what's happening is God is making something new in the church. And we are invited to be part of that. I have 2 stories to share with you about God bringing something new to the church. One of them is from last Sunday at Sassoon Pride, where members from Grace gathered with members of Epiphany Vacaville, Ascension Vallejo, and St. Paul's Benicia, so that all of the Solano County churches were represented. And we came with our brand new pop-up tent that says Grace Episcopal Church on the top of it, so people knew who we were. We all had flyers and pride flags to give away. And people came up to me, they came up to Reverend Karen, they came up to Delicia and Lisa, they came up to anyone who was there, to Nick, to Gary. Everyone who was there saw this. People coming up to us and saying, I didn't know. I didn't know there was an inclusive church. I didn't know there was a place where I could worship God and be the person who God made me, and not be told that I'm living in sin, not be told that I need to change. I can be who I am. That was news to them. I noticed there was a drag queen that I was talking to who I noticed she had a crucifix on around her neck. And she told me, I'm glad you represented. I'm glad you showed up. You've got your collar. You've got the colors on. You're here. We need you. This was news to her. This was something new. This was something new in the world of churches being out at Pride, places where churches have not been before. It's God making something new. It was beautiful. My other story about God making something new is yesterday I traveled to Sebastopol, to St. Stephen's there, who had a big celebration yesterday that was the culmination of a long-held dream and idea with many years of planning and thinking about this. But it was opening something called the Playground, where their rector looked around at all the space that they have, all the land that they have at that church that was not being used. And she asked the question, what does our community need? And her answer to that was a place for children and families to gather. So they built a playground, they built some structures, they have picnic tables, and then they built a cafe. A cafe that's open Wednesday through Sunday, where families can come and bring their kids, get some snack, get lunch. The kids can play, the families can gather. They're on the church property, but they're not coming in on Sunday morning. And it's a way of finding new ways to be church. Because one thing that we know how to do in the church is we know how to gather. We know how to help people make meaning of their lives. And that's what they're doing at the playground, is giving people a safe place to gather, and a place where they can start to talk to people about what this all means. What a life of discipleship, what a life of respecting the dignity of every human being, of seeking Christ in all people and striving for justice and peace on the earth. They can have these conversations because the people are there. Those are conversations that you can't just have at like the cafe down the street, but they can have them there when they bring people in. It's a really creative use. It's a creative way of doing something new with church. Because God is always making something new. And maybe you've seen this in your personal life. Maybe you've experienced the death of a loved one and have gone through the grieving process and one day realized, I am new. I have been made new. Maybe you've experienced a serious illness and you've come out the other side and realized that I am now a new person. Maybe you've retired or lost a job. Maybe you've had a relationship end where you thought that was it. What happens next? And then you suddenly realize that you've been made new and you've got a new life, that God is making something new. Because that's what God does. God's always making a new thing. And sometimes that means getting us out of our comfort zones. Sometimes that means either personally or as a church that a violent wind comes and kicks us out of where we were. And that suddenly we are not comfortable anymore. My friend, Deacon Kate Sefton at St. Stephen's Sebastopol yesterday, we were talking and she said something about, it could be the hand of God or it could be the foot of the Holy Spirit. And that's the thing, is that sometimes we feel the hand of God in our lives, and sometimes we feel the foot of the Holy Spirit kicking us out of where we're comfortable and saying, get out there and go be a new thing. So that is what Pentecost is. Pentecost isn't just this one day where we have all these songs about the Holy Spirit, where we wave our little things. They just said, Holy Spirit, everybody wave your little thing. This isn't just the day that we're read. Pentecost is something that is always with us because God is always making something new. So go out there today and ask, what is God making new in my life? What is God making new in the church? And go out there and be that new thing.